The Indianapolis Colts fell yet again, this time to the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-17 in their final home game of the season. So after 6 straight losses, what's there to say about this franchise and its epic collapse? Have we seen the last of Phillip Rivers? And of course, how do you, the fans, feel about this team heading into a regular season finale against the dreaded Houston Texans? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, as always presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. I am Drake Wally, host of the show, co-deputy editor for the website, or just deputy editor for the website. I'm here to talk about the Colts, despite the fact that, yet again, this team can't get a win. We'll just kind of very briefly dive into a brief, I guess, thought on this game. You had a chance to win. You had a chance to get a big victory against a surging opponent that honestly looks like the hottest offense in the NFL right now in the Jacksonville Jaguars, led by Trevor Lawrence. And yet again, the Colts cannot get it done. We're going to dive into everything from the offensive side to the defensive side to what's to come, Phillip Rivers, really everything, because there's a lot to unpack here, guys, just a lot to unpack. But we got some people already in the chat. I'm just here to support Drake. The Colts don't deserve their fans lately. Thank you so much, Paul. As always, you're an absolute legend, right? But I think the fans, you're at the final home game of the year, and it's a meaningless game. It didn't mean, there's no significance to even playing it, really, but there's pride. These guys do have a job to go out there and fight and win and do everything possible to come out on the other side with a victory. But of course, the Colts did not have enough to take out a team like Jacksonville. Jacksonville just was superior offensively. They had great defensive plays as well. But it's really disappointing because yet again, this team just they can't keep their footing. They keep losing and losing and losing, and it's got to be one of the worst midseason collapses I've ever witnessed as an analyst, a fan, a guy who loves football. It's just awful. So, can we just talk about the offseason already, says Patrick, right? It's not far off, man. It's become something that I think Colts fans are just getting used to looking forward to, is the offseason, because there's not been any playoff football for 5 years now. And it's really disappointing. I mean, I just don't think that anybody can look at this year and not say that it's been a complete disaster. You start off, it's been a tale of two years, honestly. The first half they start 8-2. Of course, you go on that week 11 bye, and then you see the Kansas City Chiefs. By the way, I'm bringing back the mule, just in case anybody cares. I am bringing back the legendary Moscow Mule. Enough beer. We got to have some clean energy here. You know what I'm saying? But they just, this team it came from an era of constant playoff football. And then you've got Andrew Luck comes in and he leads the team to 3 straight playoff appearances, each one better than the other, from 12, 13, and 14. And then you just have this complete dumpster fire after 2018. I mean, this team they are allergic to the playoffs since Phillip Rivers did it in 2020. And now there's just so much ambiguity and questions that are arising that I just don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to think about this football team. But yes, Patrick, the offseason is just around the corner. And yet again, we get to talk about it early on this channel instead of talking about playoff football, which from an analytical standpoint and a writing standpoint, professional standpoint, covering this team, this sucks. I'm so sick of not talking about playoff football. So right there with you. But thank you so much, Corey. W. Drake, for being positive. I have to. I'm just kidding. I choose to be, but it's definitely going to be a positive episode. There's going to be some critical moments because I have to drag this team through the mud at some point, given what they didn't do and have done both. It's required and needed, So we'll see. We'll see how positive this episode is. What's up, Drake? Teresa Willis Johnson, good to see you. Really, really awesome to have everybody in here. And Tony, it is not Maker's Mark, buddy. It's a sweet, sweet Moscow Mule, my personal favorite, and it really takes the edge off of talking about this football team. So anyway, guys, without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. So the Colts dropped their 6th straight game Oh my God. I'll kind of rehash it. They start off historically good. Okay, for anybody that's been living under a rock, this team started off historically good. They were ripping and rolling. They were tearing apart teams. They even beat a solid defense. Good, I would say by all rights, a good or sometimes great defense in the Arizona Cardinals. You absolutely backhand inferior competition to the point where they were beating teams like a Division I college football team does to like an Appalachian State or something. They were just wrecking teams, and they even beat the Los Angeles Chargers, a playoff contender, at SoFi Stadium. They took them out. So I think that there was positivity and excitement was at an all-time high, even losing to the Rams. There was a lot of reason to be excited about that loss. And, then after the bye, oh my God, they haven't won since. They haven't won since. You come off of a bye, you're supposed to be ready to go, well rested. You've had an extra week to prepare your game plan for the opponent that's on the other side of that bye waiting for you. And it just has not panned out. The Colts, 6 straight losses. But for this game specifically, Trevor Lawrence, he didn't throw a touchdown pass. He did run a couple in. But the Jaguars, they were limited. They had some red zone woes. They kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit to keep the Colts in this game. But Indianapolis, they kept themselves close, right? But of course, you can't just do that and then lose the football game. And I got to say this again, the fans are the ones who really suffered the most. Former co-host of the show, Andrew Moore, and I were doing a Bleacher Report episode, and even he said, the energy was just dead. The energy was dead in that stadium, and that's a real shame because Lucas Oil Stadium is the kind of place that when the Colts are making fans happy, it can be an unbearable place to play. I've been there when there's excitement. I've been there when there's sadness and everything in between, and I'm telling you, that's a hell of a stadium to play football in if you're doing right by the fans. But the Colts have not been, and I think that the fans were going into that one just kind of expecting a loss, and well, the Colts gave it to them. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is just a disgusting streak, and I can't believe it's happening to the Colts. But um, yeah, yeah. Eric says, what's up, brother? Another swift kick in the butt again this year. Maybe next year will be our time. Man, that's really sad, and that's actually interesting you say that, Eric, because that is what fans that don't see playoff football say every single year. The Browns fans, oh, next year's going to be our year. You got Titans fans, next year's going to be our year. That's just, and that's not saying anything bad about you guys or any fans out there. That's just what happens when a team doesn't get to the postseason, and it happens over and over and over. It's like a recurring nightmare. 21 all the way up to now, it's been a recurring nightmare year after year not making the playoffs. But in this case, a smaller sample, it's been a recurring nightmare game after game watching this team drop one after the other after the other. You've lost your last 2 at home, right? I mean, just absolutely unacceptable, man. And I know there's been injuries. I understand that, DeForest Buckner was put back on IR. Dalton Tucker didn't start at right guard. This time it was, I believe, Matt Gonsalves got the start, but then he got Jalen Travis, instead of Braden Smith, which he did his best. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Colts have had a lot of injuries, but that's not acceptable to lose 6 straight games earlier in the year. I mean, Lou Anarumo was doing fine without Charvarius Ward or Sauce Gardner, playing guys like Jonathan Edwards and, Mekhi Blackman. And in this case, they played Cameron Mitchell at cornerback, who almost had a pick and had 2 pass deflections. So that's a shame that we're already hearing that. Maybe it'll be next year, but maybe it will. Who knows? But yeah, so Tony Pelletieri says, read something about free agency predictions had Pierce to the Patriots. I love that you brought that up. The Colts have to re-sign Alec Pierce. They have no choice. They need to re-sign Alec Pierce. There have been times in this season where he has been the number 1 wide receiver. And in this game specifically, it was a little rough for him, but we'll get into that when we talk offense. Teresa Willis-Johnson. And by the way, guys, since we're still getting a feel for this will kind of be the layout of the episodes, is I'm going to just kind of dive into what you guys have to say, and we'll just go from there. If we don't talk any offense or defense, and I keep highlighting your comments, that's just the way it'll go. We're going to have fun with this thing. Changes are coming. Is Ballard going to be gone, or are they going to use the injury excuse and keep Ballard and Steichen? You said it, Teresa. They're going to use that excuse. I do not think that either one of these guys are going to be gone. I think that, Shane Steichen was actually asked, I can't remember who asked it, but they said, basically, are you worried about your job security? And he said, I'm not worried. Typical coach speak answer. I'm not worried. I'm worried about the Houston Texans next week. That's all I'm worried about. And that's fair. I think that injuries, especially to quarterback, I'm not going to lie, that is a backbreaker. And when I saw, I'll just say this, speaking of Jaguars, when I saw Daniel Jones go down with that injury and he couldn't stand up and he started slamming his helmet on the ground, first off, Daniel Jones does not get angry. Second off, when that happened, I said, what are they going to do? What the hell is this team going to do? You got Riley Leonard. That's who you have. That's who they had. They had Brett Rippon on the practice squad, for God's sakes. And then you got Tyler Warren as your emergency quarterback. I mean, this team is not just allergic to the playoffs. They are allergic to finding the right man at quarterback, whether it be injuries or, losing happiness and retiring, or just 1 year rentals, falling off a cliff as far as your prime, like Matt Ryan did, or, a complete recycle like Carson Wentz was. I mean, this team just really has not done a good job of scooping up the pieces that Andrew Luck left behind, and call it the Peyton Manning curse, if you will. I don't think there's a curse. I think that this team has been scrambling around like crazy to try to find a quarterback, and it just continues to not work out. So, no, Teresa, I absolutely think that they're both going to be back. And I think that they are going to use, injuries. Injuries are the reason. You can't really help those, can you? So, Paul Wilson, $5 super chat, throwing down. Jags and Texans will be good for years, and the Titans have won more games than us in the second half. My glass is half empty. Momentum, morale, and consistency are ideas, but they are tangible in so many ways. And the biggest one is momentum. Once the Colts lost that heartbreaker to Kansas City, it just started to snowball for them. And I think that once they got their teeth kicked in I think that once they got their teeth kicked in by the Jaguars in week 14, when Jones went down, I think that's when momentum, morale, all of that just tanked. And of course they brought Phillip Rivers in, but this is a guy that, we'll get to him later, but there was no way he was going to save this team. There was no way he was going to go out there and lead them to the playoffs with the murderer's row of competition, like Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville, and then Houston next week. There was no way he was going to do that. But I think that, the glass half empty it's a very viable feeling. It's not fun, but given what you've seen here, it's not really out of the question to feel that way. So I don't blame you, Paul. I do think that, the Texans especially, they've got a defense that is, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter each have 12 plus sacks. That is just, that's scary, dude. Those two are just ripping and tearing offensive linemen. They are scary. So they're going to be good. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they just, traded for Jacoby Myers. They have Parker Washington now, who's starting to break out. You've got Brenton Strange, who looks good. Travis Etienne can always be good. Their offensive line did a good job. Lawrence is getting better. And, of course, Josh Hines-Allen, he's always going to be a wrecking machine on defense. And the Trayvon Walker, he has just always had the Colts' number when he suits up. So I think that both those teams are built for the long term. And unfortunately, the Colts right now, there's a lot of question marks. Unfortunately, I just don't think that there's any clear direction that this team is going. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. When you start losing games like that, you lose your quarterback. It really sucks, especially when you mortgage so much on Daniel Jones. But yeah, guys, a lot of comments are getting in here. We'll do Spooks Hill Joe one more thing, and then we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty. I blame the whole coaching staff, especially the assistants. How about the trainer? Why so many injuries? Joe, it's hard to say that it's the injury, that it's the training staff. Injuries are hard to put blame on anybody for. I would argue a lot of times it's just freak accident after freak accident. And when it rains, it freaking pours. You get out of your car, you spill your coffee on your shoe, you stub your toe, you fall down, you break your glasses, whatever. Like it's just a one after the other type thing. And injuries just pile up. They just start to plague a team. And I will say that, sure, the training staff, did they need to put Jones out there on a fractured fibula? Probably not, but I bet you a dime to a donut that Daniel Jones said, I'm good. What are you going to tell him? No. I mean, he's a tough SOB. He's not going to say no to going out there and playing on a bum leg. So that's on Jones too, just being tough, and hey, it happens. Patrick, you're a gem, my friend. Well, actually, we got one more here. I hope the Colts bring back Daniel Jones next year. So, Adam Schefter actually said that, he believes the Colts will bring back Daniel Jones. And to be honest, what option do they have? Like what realistic option do they have? You know what I mean? You could lean into Anthony Richardson, but I think the Colts have given up on him, and they did it very quickly. And while I've said my piece on Anthony Richardson, I think that he has struggled immensely. He has looked awful in the NFL. But the Colts also preached patience, and I think Andrew and I were talking about this, and then they just gave up on the kid. You bring in Daniel Jones, and you just kind of give up on him. And I think that they're not going to take his fifth-year option. So the only way he's going to play is if Daniel Jones isn't re-signed. That's the only way you'll see number 5 back out there starting under center week 1 is if Daniel Jones is not retained and they don't re-sign him. So we'll see. Ridiculous situation again for the Colts and their quarterback debacles that just never stop, just like this losing streak, baby. All right, so Patrick Rice says, I still like the trade for Sauce, but the thing that made me more than fine with it was Indy's first-round picks were supposed to be 27 and 32 the next 2 years. I mean, yeah, and, Sauce Gardner, say what you want about the trade. He's a difference maker. To the people that don't like the trade, he is arguably the best cornerback in football. Why wouldn't you want that on your team when you have Charvarius Ward on the other side? You are looking like a Super Bowl contender, and you feel like you're one lockdown corner away from taking a Lombardi trip? I would have done the same thing. I remember on the post-game Bleacher Report episode, I had somebody ask me straight up, knowing what you know now, would you have traded for Sauce Gardner? No. I mean, of course not, right? If I would have known Daniel Jones was going to go down, I would have kept the first rounders. Right? But I put myself in that position when it was happening. You're damn right I would have. I thought it was a ballsy trade. I thought that it showed gusto, moxie, risk, calculated risk. You can't tell me they just said, oh, you know who we need to go after is Sauce Gardner and give away 2 first-rounders. I bet that there were constant negotiations with the Jets. That was one of their 2 best defensive players at the time, and the other one being defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, who is arguably better than DeForest Buckner. So I loved the trade, and I think that now you're looking at another middling pick for the Colts. They're going to probably finish 8 and 9, and you're talking about right now, guys, by the way, right now, guess what Shane Steichen's record is as a Colts head coach? 25 and 25. You talk about the definition of average. There you go. That's literally the definition of average. So thank you so much, Patrick. And holy cow, we have a legend. We have a legend in the chat here. And I'm so excited that he decided to stop by. The one and only go check out Touring the AFC South on YouTube, and you will get a full display of what sports coverage is, especially in this division. And that is the one and only, the legend, Mike Patton. Thank you so much, Mike. You're a stud. Please go check out his work. He's excellent. He works his ass off to make it happen. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes at the QB position next year. Like we just talked about, Mike, I don't see them going any other route than Daniel Jones. I think that it would be nice, honestly. Do I love Daniel Jones? Yeah. But with that Achilles tear, Oh boy, that's a big risk. It's a huge risk. And then letting Anthony Richardson take the reins of the offense one more time, that's also a huge risk. And how many more years of JT do you have in his prime? How many more years of Quentin Nelson do you have? How many more years of stellar offensive line play do you have from Braden Smith if they decide to keep him? Like, it's just there's so many what ifs now, and no option is good. They can't draft a quarterback. Jones is coming off of a season-ending injury. By the way, he's had multiple, so you're risking something there. Who knows if he's ever going to be the same? Achilles injuries are really tricky to recover from. And then you've got free agent quarterbacks. It's a wasteland. Marcus Mariota, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. Those are your options. For God's sakes, they're not signing a quarterback. And then you got Anthony Richardson, who's the wild card, the guy that has all this talent, has all this ability, but he hasn't put it on display at all on a football field in the pros, and he can't stay healthy. So it is going to be interesting. It's going to be the talk of the offseason yet again for the Indianapolis Colts, because they found themselves in a hole for yet another year. So we'll see, Mike. But thank you so much for dropping by, dude. You are awesome, and definitely one of my favorites to watch. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into it. So the offense underwhelms, and so does Phillip Rivers. So just to kind of jump into it here, I've got the box score pulled up. So Phillip Rivers, 17 for 30 for only 147 passing yards, 1 tud, 1 pick. He got sacked twice. Of course, Jonathan Taylor had 70 yards on the ground, and Tyler Warren led the way. It says a lot when your best receiver has 43 receiving yards, 5 catches on 5 targets for 43 receiving yards. Of course, Josh Downs hauling a few. The biggest one, though, for me, coming off of arguably the best performance of the year for a Colts wide receiver, Alec Pierce had 2 touchdown catches and 86 yards on 4 catches against the San Francisco 49ers, and he was targeted 5 times without a single catch against the Jaguars, which really hurt this football team. Say what you want about Phillip Rivers' return, and it's awesome. Trust me, it's one of my favorite stories in recent memory, if I'm being, upfront. I still think I wrote an article on why it'll go down as one of the greatest stories in NFL history. It's just incredible. But I mean, he's so limited, right? Like, he's got the mind, and he's got, the quick release, and he's got the ability to sense the pressure and get the ball the hell out of there. Barely gets touched, can't even move, and he barely gets touched. But he's just so limited. He doesn't have the velocity on those throws anymore. You saw it with I think it was Jerry and Jones. And with that interception, that ball just kind of coasted a little bit to Josh Downs, and Rivers kind of gave him the tell that he was going to throw it. So, it was just a really disappointing performance from the offense. And if you're looking at it, minus the sacks, 147 passing yards plus 69 receiving yards, you are looking at 216 total yards. I mean, that's just not going to cut it. You're not going to win games with 216 total yards on offense. I don't care if it's, a beautiful story of Phillip Rivers, the old man, the legend, the dad bod version of Phillip is out there playing. That's just not going to cut it in the NFL, and your defense is going to struggle to help you when you don't move the ball more than 250 yards total of offense. So they did not play very well. I thought the offensive line, did everything they could, but Jonathan Taylor, he scored a touchdown. And of course, then Mo Alley Cox hauled in one. And Blake Grupe continues to just be absolute money. He's going to get a gig after this season. It's just not going to be with the Colts. But underwhelming performance. Offense struggled. And I just think that when it's all said and done here with Indianapolis, you really can't fault the offense every game. But I do think that people have stopped criticizing the offense because Phillip Rivers is running it. Hey, I'm not one of those guys. I'll criticize the hell out of the offense. They did not play very well. And I thought that Phillip Rivers really struggled to get the ball downfield again. But regardless, we do have to get to the other side of the football, and that's that the defense stepped up in certain areas, but down in others. And so if we're looking at Jacksonville's numbers, so Trevor Lawrence, he had 23 pass completions out of 37 attempts, still not the most accurate quarterback, but he picks his shots really well, I think. For 263 passing yards, he got sacked twice, I think once by Laiatu Latu. And we'll talk about the defense on the other one. But Travis Etienne had 4.5 yards per carry, 76 rushing yards. And of course, Trevor Lawrence had the pair of touchdowns with his feet in the red zone. He really did a good job of getting in. But Parker Washington, man, absolutely shredded this defense. He made them look silly out there. 10 targets, hauls in 8 for a buck 15 and a long of 37. You know, this defense, I've been so torn on this defense because I want to defend the hell out of Lou Anarumo. I absolutely love his style. I love his coaching prowess. He's just an easy guy. He's an easy guy to support and get behind. And if I was a defensive player, I would love playing for a guy like Lou. But I think that when the games really matter, his defense just kind of falls apart. And the time of possession wasn't an issue this time. The lack of pressure from the defensive front is alarming. And Leatu Latu seems to be the only guy that's getting to the quarterback. And if he had help outside of the talents of Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Tyquan Lewis, and yet again a healthy scratch, JT Tuamoliau, you'd see Latu with probably 10 plus sacks right now, man. I mean, he's been balling out this season. I love Latu, and I think his future's bright. You got to get that guy some help. And the Colts, Chris Ballard is allergic to drafting a capable edge rusher, actually outside of Leatu Latu, or signing one. We got a bunch of comments here. We're going to get to some of these. Patrick, I do understand that reference. I do understand that reference. Full stop. So very funny, but I definitely can't put that up there. So we have 141JM. How come defensive line coach Charlie Partridge has not come under the microscope? That unit has gone backwards since he came in. I love that you said that because I have been the guy that has been out here campaigning to put this dude under the microscope. But it also has to do with the lack of talent. I mean, Samson Ebukam, for example, is coming off of that Achilles injury, missed all of 2024, right? He has not been the same, plain and simple. Led the team in sacks with 9.5 in 2023. Misses all of last year, and he came back, and he's kind of a shell of himself. He's also in his early 30s, so he might be hitting a decline, or maybe he's plateauing. Kwity Paye has shown just in full this year that he is not a pass rusher, honestly, of any kind. I think that he's a run defender through and through. That's what you're going to get from him. And honestly, fans, if you expect more from Kwity Paye, that's on you. He's just not it. And I fully expect him to be gone. Tyquan Lewis is a rotational piece. And like I said, with JT Tuamoliau, he can't even get on the field. And it's not because of injuries. He was a healthy inactive in this game. And they just decided not to. And they've also worked out a couple of defensive line players today and a linebacker. So the Colts are definitely trying to figure out defensive end, but J2 Tuamoliau is not even on the field, which that's a second round pick that has done diddly poo this year, as Jim Mora would say. Just the defensive line has sucked. But yes, I think Charlie Partridge, don't be surprised if he's gone. Don't be surprised. Honestly, don't be surprised if he goes back to college football. I think that's where he belongs. I think he's done what he can, but I think he's in over his head in the NFL. And he's just not doing very well with the defensive line. But the talent's also not there, apparently. So, I mean, Gus Bradley's defense, I do like what you said there. They did get after the quarterback. I like this one here. Jalen Travis looking pretty decent for sure. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Travis, I think that you got your next right tackle. I think that that's going to be the Braden Smith replacement. I think that I don't want to say that it's good that Smith, was put on IR. That's never good. But Braden Smith was very unlikely to join this team next year and be re-signed and be retained. I think that he's going to be a free agent and he's going to get picked up easily. He'll find a place. But Jalen Travis definitely, he's been standing tall. So definitely respect Jalen Travis and how he's just been thrown into the fray to start, because Braden Smith is a hell of a football player. So that's definitely something to be proud of. But yeah, man, the defense, I thought Sauce Gardner did a good job. Cameron Mitchell, I think someone mentioned him in the chat here. It's his best game. Absolutely. It might be the best game of his NFL career. He was brought on just to be depth. And with Charvarius Ward out, you saw a lot of Mekhi Blackman. You saw a lot of Jalen Jones. You saw a lot of Cameron Mitchell. And, I also think that you saw how green Cameron Mitchell is to playing in meaningful games, or just in games in general. because he dropped probably the easiest interception he would have ever had in his football life. Trevor Lawrence just threw that football right to him, and he just like it just hit his hands like that. He like jumped for it, and it hit his hands. He could have had a game-altering interception. Would have been Lawrence's second. But the guy I really want to talk about, man, Jermaine Pratt. Jermaine Pratt, what an absolute beast. What a great signing. And I'm very impressed with what I've seen from Jermaine Pratt. I think that I don't want to, because there's been a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon that Zaire sucks. I don't think that he sucks. There are three things I will say though. I think he's overrated. I think that Zaire Franklin is overrated. I think that a lot of his prowess and his allure comes from what he does, kind of like Phillip Rivers for the offense. He does it for the defense. He's the guy that makes all the checks and the calls, and he's keeping the defense constantly, on their in their place. Like whenever you see things happening with the offense at the line of scrimmage, Zaire's the one that's catching on to all of it and signaling to the rest of the defense what to do. But he's a liability in coverage. Not bad. He is a liability in coverage. Quarterbacks pick on this guy. They really do. They pick on Zaire Franklin as much as they can. I think he misses a lot of tackles that I wish he wouldn't. And he's just an all around. I think he's an above average linebacker, and that's where you got to cut it off. I think he's busy. He's a busy football player, gets a lot of tackles, stat sheet stuffer, box score extraordinaire. But man, the concrete stuff on the field, I just don't see it. As far as Jermaine Pratt goes, though, man, what an absolute beast. I love Jermaine Pratt. I think that the Colts would be ridiculous to not keep him. They need linebacker help. Clearly, Jalen Carlies isn't the guy because he's been healthy. And like J.T. Tuamoliau, he still finds himself on the inactive list every now and again. This game he wasn't, but he didn't really play. Or if he did, I sure as hell didn't see it. So, yeah, Bruce Cox, I see what you're doing down there with Zaire. The Colts fans just don't like number 44. I like Zaire. I think he's a hell of a leader. I just don't think I don't think he's as good of a linebacker as his paycheck indicates. I'm not even sure if he is really a defensive captain. I think, again, the calls he makes at the line of scrimmage or before, pre-play, that's a big reason he's the captain, is because he does a lot of that mental stuff for the Colts. And it's not easy to find a guy that's going to do that. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think that he is right here. Jermaine Pratt is a must resign, a must. I'm done with Zaire Franklin. I mean, look, I'll go ahead and I'll play devil's advocate here, and I'll argue for Zaire. Zaire is constantly around the ball carrier. I'll give him that. He finds himself. He gets pulled. It's almost like he's attracted, like magnetically, to a ball carrier. He's always around to try to get those tackles. I'll give him that. I think he's an exceptional field general for the defense. I do think that he does a good job of that. And I think he's a hell of a blitzer. I think that when you send that guy on a blitz, he is going to hit that gap like a rocket. And he's fast when he's blitzing. So there's benefits to Zaire Franklin, but if we're talking like coverage, consistency with not missing tackles, those two things are huge. And I just think that he's bad at both of those, but I think he's horrific in coverage. I think Jermaine Pratt showed yesterday that, he's played better than Zaire. I know he hasn't been here as long this year, but I would be really, really upset with the front office if they didn't keep Jermaine Pratt and just let this talent go somewhere else, because he's good. He's done a good job. But yeah, so at the end of the day, the defense, I think they did what they could. It just continues to be a letdown. So this is a good question, and I want people to chime in here. What does this collapse say about the Indianapolis Colts? I'll go ahead and start right here. I think this is the biggest collapse in NFL history. And I know there's been plenty, but how many teams have started out 8-2 with an MVP caliber running back, a comeback player of the year candidate in Daniel Jones, Pro Bowler in Daniel Jones, You have a surging offensive line that is steamrolling people. You have arguably the rookie of the year. You have a rookie of the year candidate, offensive rookie of the year candidate in Tyler Warren. You've got a defense that's taking the ball away every single game. You have a historically good offense that is beating the ever-loving crap out of its competition. Only to go 8-8 and lose 6 in a row. I know injuries happened. This has got to be the most pathetic collapse in the history of this league. And I'm not gonna sit down from that argument. I'll stand right by that. I'll stand by that pile. If someone wants to call that a pile of crap, I'll stand by my pile of crap. But I'll tell you right now that this is an absolutely embarrassing fall from grace and unlike anything I've ever seen. They were a lock to make the playoffs, like 99% in, and now they're out. Just like that. Boom, they're out. And I know the schedule got tougher, but that's the NFL, man. Nobody's schedule isn't going to have professional football teams on it. There's different tiers and different levels, but every team plays pro teams every single week, and each team has pride and reason to go out there and fight for a victory. And the Colts just haven't been able to do it. And I think that it says that this team, when the games matter, when the opponents get really, really difficult, they don't answer. They wane, they fall. Game like big time moments are similar to the Colts the way they were when Carson Wentz was playing for this team. They're just not, they don't mix. When you needed a big throw from Carson Wentz, what would he do? He'd dirt the pass, or he'd throw a pick, or an underhanded, stupid, attempt. What have you seen from the Indianapolis Colts? They've not been able, like the Seattle Seahawks game is a perfect example. They won the damn game, but due to bad clock management from Shane Steichen, they allowed Sam Darnold for just under a minute, which in the NFL now is an eternity, to go right down the field and let Jason Myers kick the game winner. I mean, this team does not answer the bell when they need wins or need a play the most. They simply don't do it. And I think that's what it says most to me about the Colts this year. Let's see here. Yes. I don't know about soft team. I don't know about soft team, but I like this comment. Val 2020. I think that it exposed the Colts just entirely. I don't think that it made anyone say that team is soft. I think that it showed everybody that, hey, if you take away Jonathan Taylor, people were afraid to sell out for Jonathan Taylor. Defenses didn't want to risk that because Jones was wheeling and dealing to guys like Warren, Pittman, Pierce. He was just hitting everybody. I mean, the defenses were getting hit in the short game by Downs, the short and intermediate game by Warren and Pittman. Pittman also contributed to the vertical game, but then Pierce down the field. I mean, they could hit you everywhere in the passing game. But the Steelers were ballsy enough. I'll say this about Mike Tomlin. They had the wherewithal to say, you know what? The hell with it. We are going to risk everything. We're going to send everybody as many times as we can. We're going to load that box, and we are going to do what we can to stop Jonathan Taylor. And if Daniel Jones somehow beats us with his arm in press coverage, so be it. And he couldn't. He couldn't do it. The line waned. They fell apart. And after that game, they got a win against the Falcons in Berlin. But, I mean, that really was the blueprint. And I think you're right, Val. After that game, everybody just started doing the same thing to the Colts. And it resulted in loss after loss after loss, including, when Daniel Jones played the Chiefs and when he played the Texans. I mean, the blueprint was out, and the Colts couldn't figure it out. They couldn't adjust to the way defenses were approaching him. So, but that was the game, I think, where it all started to fall apart for Indianapolis. That's a good call right there, Val. Let me see here. I didn't say anything bad about Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman's a dog. But it's just, I do think that there were times where Alec Pierce was a better receiver. I will say that. I think that there's things that Michael Pittman does great. I don't think there's anything he does exceptional. I also don't think there's anything he does bad. He's your quintessential all-around receiver who is very strong in the possession game. He's really good at getting that football and hauling in catches at a high percentage. Let's see here. Tina Hauser says, it is embarrassing. I will give you that. But it's not the worst collapse, but at least in recent memory. You know, Tina, I appreciate that, but I'll challenge you to put in the chat a worse collapse that you know of than a team that was historically good, better than when Peyton Manning. The stats were better than when Manning led the team and Luck, and they were number one in the NFL, and they had a top 10 defense in many regards and the best offense. They led the NFL in points. And like I said, Daniel Jones was resurgent. Jonathan Taylor was an MVP. Tyler Warren looked like an offensive rookie of the year candidate. And this team was just killing people. And then they are out of the playoffs. Just like, whew, it's like you turn around twice and they're gone. So I respect that. But please, if you find time, find a worse collapse that you know of and put it in the chat and I'll give you your props. But this is no offense. I don't think you're going to. This is so bad. It's obscene. It's honestly disgusting from a football standpoint that they've done that. But yeah, I don't know. The 1996 Oakland Raiders, but I just don't think that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I do not. I bet you they were not setting historical numbers offensively. I just. Me personally, maybe I'm biased, but awful collapse. And I think it says a lot about that the Colts didn't have contingency plans ready. And they also just are not able to answer the call when they need it. So this last one is a big one. This is a big segment, a large piece of this this entire episode here. And it has to do with Phillip Rivers. Right. And what I'm going to ask you guys, and I think that we know the answer to this, is this the last we've seen of Phillip Rivers? I wrote a piece on, kind of like I mentioned, I wrote an article on why this was one of the coolest stories ever. I loved the fact that he did it to set an example, to not run from fear, to not run from fear of the unknown and go after things and take a risk, take a chance, shoot, let's go for it, is what he said. What an absolute pro, Hall of Famer. And this only added to his Hall of Fame case. I know that he had his clock reset. Who cares? Who cares if he had his clock reset? I know people were like, why would he do that? First off, it was for the insurance renewal. Smart. That's like a high IQ move from old Philly Rivs there. But the guy was washed. The guy was out of shape, out of football shape anyway. He had been coaching high school football. For him to come in, guys, and dissect Seattle's defense like that. He was identifying their blitzes. He knew exactly what Seattle was doing. It was incredible. I can't believe what I was watching in that game. Phillip Rivers was doing stuff that NFL quarterbacks don't do anymore, and that's defeating defenses with his mind. The quarterback of old, he exposed so much of what's wrong with today's NFL for a couple of reasons. Number one, the most obvious, the Colts couldn't get anyone better than Phillip Rivers on the free agent market? Are you kidding me? That's number one. This is no knock on Phillip Rivers, but he's 44, out of shape, sitting on a damn couch. And that's the guy that you think is going to give you the best chance to win. I know we understood the offense. I get it. But there's no one else out there. Unbelievable. The NFL has a quarterback development problem. All right. And for the Colts, I look at guys like Cam Turner. Maybe it's the Colts. Maybe it's Richardson. It's probably both. But holy crap, man. Phillip Rivers exposed a dire need for smarter quarterbacks in the NFL and better development. Second is he was able to get the ball out so fast. He's got a quick release. He sensed pressure. He just did so well against Seattle. Balled out against the 49ers. It wasn't his fault. They dropped 48 points on top of Indy's head. And then, of course, he did lose this game, but it was a commendable performance against the Jaguars. But the Colts couldn't do anything better than sign Phillip Rivers. So, that says a lot about the NFL, but it also just says a lot about Phillip Rivers. And he played like a top 20 quarterback, guys. He might not have had the arm. He might not have had the physical talents anymore. He never really had either one of those, by the way. But the way he's able to just get the offense in the best position to win, that makes up for a lot of the physical stuff, So, I thought he did great. But yeah, I think Rivers is on the sideline this week, but in street clothes with an earpiece and helping Leonard when the defense is out there. I'm right there with you, Patrick. I don't know why you would even put Rivers out there. They named him the starter against Jacksonville before they knew they were out of the playoffs, right? So had they, let's say that they hadn't named a starter yet, Saturday night rolls around, and which this would never happen, but hypothetical here. Let's say that Saturday night rolls around, they find out that they're out of the playoffs. They're not starting Rivers against the Jaguars. They're just not. They're starting Riley Leonard. So I do think that Phillip Rivers, it hasn't been announced yet. It'll be announced tomorrow. But I don't see how you're going to start Phillip Rivers against Houston. Do you really want him to get hurt? Like, that is a defense that is beating the crap out of offenses, man. They just did it to Justin Herbert, and now he's hurt when the Chargers can least afford it. So that's what I think. And there was actually another comment here that I love because I also wrote an article on this one. Let me see here. Right here. I wrote an article on why he should be the quarterback's coach for the Colts. Why not? I mean, he's got a coach's brain. He's got a quarterback's brain. And my God, man, his son is one of the best high school recruits in the nation right now. Gunnar Rivers is absolutely awesome, and Phillip is his mentor. His dad is his mentor. Hall of Fame caliber QB in mind. I'm right there with you. I am tired of Cam Turner. The fact that Cam Turner still has a job is beyond me. I don't know. Cam Turner is not. I don't think that he can even touch Phillip Rivers' capabilities as a QB coach with a 10-foot pole. I think that Cam Turner is vastly underwhelming compared to a potential Phillip Rivers quarterback coach position. I am all about that. That would be awesome. And they did sign a quarterback off the street, Seth Hannigan, who the Colts did have some interest in. So he's going to be joining the practice squad. And they also worked out 3 other defensive players. So that really tells you right there. That's all you need to know. I assume Phillip Rivers is going to be a healthy scratch for this game. And I think that it'll probably be Riley Leonard. And actually, no, I guess Phillip Rivers, you got to have a better backup option than Seth Hannigan. So he'll probably be a backup, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Seth Hannigan maybe gets a call up to be QB3 or just stays on the practice squad. Just that's a clear indicator, though, that Phillip Rivers is not. He's not going to suit up for this game, or at least he's not going to start. We'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of this one. I do have to just some parting thoughts here, because then we're going to get to a brief preview of the Texans matchup to end the season, and then just some parting thoughts. Look, man, Phillip Rivers did what most quarterbacks would never do. I mean, how many QBs do you think? I mean, Andrew Luck won't even do it. He won't even return to football. Okay, and he knows he can move. He knows he's athletically gifted. He knows he's got the arm. Andrew Luck probably, if you give him a chance, if he was to come back and you actually put him in an NFL workout program again, had him bulk up, man, he would be able to just jump right in. He's a smart enough guy, still doesn't want to do it. And then you're talking about, other quarterbacks that definitely wouldn't come out of retirement. And before people say Cam Newton, the dude, Phillip Rivers left the NFL. Cam Newton fizzled out of the NFL. I remember he was like, man, that's a slap in my face. It's like, well, your arm is a washcloth, dude. What the hell are you talking about? Like, who? He's just butthurt that the Colts didn't desperately say, hey, we need an athletic dude. You talk about guys who can't throw. Cam Newton can't throw. He fizzled out when he was with the Pats and then with the Panthers. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, man, I do got to do this. Gonna go ahead and because it's the last time I'm gonna be able to do this. This man right here, this man right here made a lot of Colts fans proud. He didn't have to do this. He didn't have to come out of retirement, come off of his fluffy couch around his 10 kids in his mansion in Fairhope, Alabama. He didn't have to leave high school football. He didn't have to do any of this, guys. This dude is a freaking warrior. He will go down as one of the toughest quarterbacks ever. And the energy he showed screaming at the referees when they allowed Liam Cohen to have his challenge flag, it was like watching 2006 football again. Watching him scream at the referees, incredible. So, Philip, thank you. I think on behalf of all Colts fans, anybody covering this sport or covering this team, this man will forever be a franchise legend, and he barely played for the team. Whether it be 2020 and this year, or you just talking about this year, he barely played in the vastness that is his 18-year NFL career. He played 16 with the Chargers. So thank you, Philip. You're the best, and I'm never washing this jersey. I'm kidding. If I didn't do that, that'd be brutal for everybody, including myself and my two friends, my left and right nostril. But I do think this is the last time we've seen Philip Rivers. And hey guys, look at these comments. Everybody's really excited that Philip did it. But we'll go ahead and get to this before we have some parting thoughts. The Texans preview, guys. I think this is going to be an absolute bloodbath. You talk about Philip Rivers getting his first start out of retirement against the Seahawks. How about sixth rounder rookie Riley Leonard, who's barely had any NFL experience? He's barely taken first team snaps. Hey, Riley, go out there against the best defense in the NFL at NRG Stadium. Can you pull off an upset, pal? You talk about an opportunity. This poor kid's about to get thrown into a freaking hornet's nest that's on fire. I'm scared for number 15. I hope he goes out there and balls out. Yeah. That's what you hope. There couldn't be a worse team for this guy to get his first start against in a worse scenario. Texans are on an 8-game win streak, and they have a defense that their offense, C.J. Stroud could throw 5 picks. I lay you 10-1 that they'd be in the game because of that defense. They are. I hope Riley Leonard does well. He's going to need a lot of Jonathan Taylor. I wouldn't even be surprised if you saw some Colts players that are stars that I would hate it, but do you want to risk getting a guy like Sauce Gardner hurt? Do you want to risk Jonathan Taylor getting hurt with all of the mileage that he's had this season? I hate to say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they sit some of their key players and not even risk anything. You want to have faith in your football team, but you're on a 6-game losing streak, and you're about to throw out there a sixth rounder who's a rookie, who does not he's not that good of a thrower. Like, Riley Leonard is not a good passer. Okay, he is mostly an athletic specimen that can run the ball really well, but his accuracy and his arm are question marks. Now, could he prove me wrong? Of course, anybody can. That's why we do this job. But what an absolutely unfortunate debut for him to have in his first NFL start. Dear God, that is a brutal game. Exactly. It's not even about letting him get hurt. It's that your season's over anyway. You know what Rivers is going to give you. So why not let the kid go out there and not let him go out there and tire himself out running away from Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. He's going to be running for his life. I'm the ultimate optimist. I really am. But this is one of those situations in life where you got to look at it and you can say, let's go, Riley. Hey, there's a chance. This is one that isn't lopsided on paper. It's lopsided in cement. It's been written in wet cement and then let to dry, and it's never going anywhere. This is going to be, in my humble opinion, an absolute ass kicking. Pardon my French. I don't see it being, oh man, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at like a 35-10 victory I think that if the Texans can, I think that they'll embarrass the Colts if they can. Not anything personal. It's just it's a divisional opponent. The Colts were doing that to teams all year. They kept that foot down on the gas because in the NFL, a lead can go away like that. You got to score points when you can. And I think the Texans are going to do just that. I think the defense is going to force multiple turnovers and multiple sacks. But, we'll see. Maybe Riley Leonard is the next franchise quarterback, and we're all stupid with me being the ultimate dunce wearing the cap. So one last thing. Not a chance. AR is coming back next season. I do think that his agent, might campaign for a trade. I think that, it honestly looks like the Colts have given up on him. It's really sad. I remember fondly and vividly on this podcast when Andrew was on it, and when me and then he was a part of SI.com or Indianapolis Colts on SI, Destin Adams, who's now with 24/7. I think it's 24/7 Sports, or maybe I'm screwing that up, but we were so pumped when Richardson was drafted. You go with the traits. Mold the inexperience, mold the physical traits, put it all together. Be patient with him. He's going to struggle. Now, it's the injuries, and 2024 was brutal, right? It's the worst quarterbacking I've ever seen on the field since Tim Tebow. But the Colts, they brought in competition, and I respected it, but they brought in competition with the risk that Richardson wouldn't be able to beat it instead of trying to continue to develop him. And I know he stayed hurt, but they put him in a position to potentially fail, and he failed. And they were talking about extending Daniel Jones in the middle of the season. He's our long-term guy, and then he gets hurt. If I'm Anthony Richardson, I'll be honest with you, I'm saying the hell with this team. If I'm his agent, I'm looking for a trade suitor. I really am. What are you going to do with him? They're going to try to go with Daniel Jones unless they look at his progress and they're like, you know what, we're not risking an Achilles injury. We can't mortgage our future on that. Anthony Richardson, I would not be shocked at all if a headline graces everyone's phone that says, breaking news, Anthony Rich, and Ian Rappaport's on there, with his talking head talking to, Good Morning Football or whatever. Anthony Richardson has requested a trade. I would not be surprised. In fact, I almost expect it. But he is going to be in a Colts uniform. I would assume he will be, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they ask for a trade. So Patrick Rye here, we have got even if the Colts have Leonard and re-sign Jones, could you see them snagging a QB in the 4th or 5th? You know what? Yeah. Given that they don't have first rounders, and I think that if they re-sign Jones, I mean, it sure as hell isn't going to be his New York Giants deal where he had like $45 million a year or some bogus number like that, which when that happened, I thought the Giants were absolutely just like they are. I mean, I thought they were just an absolutely hapless organization. They don't have a clue what they're doing. And that's just par for the course, and it happens every other year. Say what you want about the Colts. At least they win some games. The Giants just suck every year. So, they'll be getting another high pick. They were battling the Raiders for the worst position in the league. So nothing new there. But I do think that Daniel Jones will come back on a team-friendly deal. I think it'll be a financial situation that makes sense for both sides. But I wouldn't be surprised, Patrick, if they do go and pick up a quarterback. I think it would be wise because, if you keep Riley Leonard and somehow trade Anthony Richardson, you do need a third quarterback. And why not draft somebody who's multiple rounds higher than Riley Leonard? So I'm all for it. Honestly, I'm all for anything, really. So, yeah, but yeah. There was one more. Let me see here. One more here. I like this one. We all see the writing on the wall with AR. Hell of a blind man can see that he's not the future. And the front office knew what they were doing when they brought in Jones. The decision was already made. The decision was not made. It was not made when they brought in Jones. And the reason why is because Daniel Jones came to the Indianapolis Colts as a certified draft bust. He had gone 3-13 over his last 2 seasons with the Giants. He had thrown more picks than touchdowns, just like, say it with me, Anthony Richardson. Daniel Jones was a bum in New York. And I'll argue all day they didn't give him anything, but he sucked in that offense. They got him with Shane Steichen, and everything just started clicking when he got the right quarterback guy. But they didn't make that decision when they signed Daniel Jones. They only signed him on a $14 million deal, $13.5 million on 1 year. So that's not the case. But as training camp went along, I think that maybe after a few instances, they had in the back of their mind, Daniel Jones is the guy. It's not Richardson. But let's keep going. Let's see if Richardson can pull away. And he just didn't. He just never did, and he lost the starting position. And honestly, that part is on Richardson, that he couldn't beat out Daniel Jones. I just think it's a little bit sad that they had to bring in competition. And maybe they could have tried him one more year, but he was also hurt. So, he was hurt constantly. And, even missed 6 games in 2024. So, but guys, I really think that, when it's all said and done, this game is going to be a bloodbath. I think that the Colts have so many issues. They have so many things that they're going to have to answer, once the season's over. And yet again, Chris Ballard, you're going to get that. Oh, God. And I'm going to have to cover it. You're going to get that postseason press conference that nobody's going to want to hear because you've heard it for what seems like a decade. It's almost been a decade, which is baffling to me. So, but at the end of the day, guys, try not to get too doom and gloom. It is what it is. It's out of your control. It's out of my control. If we could all control the Colts, they'd be Super Bowl winners. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, just stay strong, guys. But that's the show. We're running over a little bit. I freaking love you guys. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to do this, solo. I will say, did I miss a super chat? I did not. Nope. Patrick, thank you so much for the duo of super chat. Paul Wilson, as always. Guys, do not forget to like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Indianapolis Colts on SI. And, of course, on X, we are at Colts_SI. Subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube and click the bell to turn on all the notifications. And if you want to listen, no problem. I'll even have an episode tonight that releases at midnight on Apple, on Spotify, anywhere that you get podcasts or digest them or whatever, anywhere you get your football stuff. As far as listening, it will be there. So, guys, I do want to say that we have, and there's Patrick keeping this show going. There he goes, man. Thank you so much, Patrick. It is an honor and a privilege to have you as the Chief Financial Officer of the Horseshoe Huddle. I swear to God, if it wasn't for Patrick, I'd be doing this out of a box in front of my house. But you know what? I love this. We'll end with this. No, actually, I have we're going to see how it goes. But I've got a special guest on next week's show. Not going to name who it is, but it's not somebody who's been on here before. It's someone who's brand spanking new. And they actually reached out to me to ask if they could join a show and to see where it goes. So we will see. We will see if it works out. But I will have a co-host to end the season next Monday when we hopefully talk. I don't mean to laugh. When we hopefully talk about a Colts victory over the Texans. But until then, guys, thank you so much. You guys are the absolute best. And until then, take care. Happy New Year. Drink plenty. Not too much, though. Looking at you, Patrick, and myself. And I will be talking to you guys. Me and my guest co-host will be talking to you all on Monday, hopefully discussing a season-ending victory from the Colts. Until then, take care, my friends.